Well, greetings and salutations, one and all, to the one and only Career Retrospectives right here on the Super Review Show Network. I'm joined by my two incredible friends, Kyle and Mike. How are you both doing tonight?
What's
Hey,
up, guys?
hanging
Good to be
in.
back.
Doing good. Doing
Yes,
good.
we took the week off. Kyle saw Metallica in Philadelphia, and Mike was busy doing whatever. No, I'm just kidding. I gave them Memorial Day off. They got their PTO. They're all good there, so don't worry. As
Nice.
we are recording this on Tuesday, not Monday. We're recording this on Tuesday, May 27th. And this album came out back in, was it April 25th of this year? It came out, I believe, when I'm mistaken. Tonight we're going to be discussing and breaking down a little bit about Billy Idol's most recent release called "Dream Into It." An interesting album, needless to say. But I mean, let's get right into it. I mean, this is a very unique album, needless to say. Kyle, what would you say about Billy Idol? I mean, what's your background with Billy Idol? I mean, I know you like him though, right?
Yeah, I mean he's all right. I'm not going to call myself a fan or anything like that, but he has his big songs from back in the day are all really good. As an album artist, I'll be the first to admit this is the first full length album I've listened to from him. Outside of the hits and his original work. What I didn't realize though, and I should have guessed when thinking about this album, I was like, I can't remember the last thing he put out. I was wondering if this was like, we talked about Bryan Adams about a month or so ago, and how he's been just kind of like under the radar in the mainstream, releasing albums consistently. I was like, oh, maybe that's the same deal for Billy Idol. No, this is his first like actual album in about a decade or a little bit more, something like that. So going into this, I really didn't know what to expect. I was like, is this going to be just like a mid '80s throwback to his original sounds? Is this going to be something modern? What we got was yes to kind of both of those, in addition to some other genre surprises in there for better or worse. But we'll get into that when we break down the track list.
Yep, of course. And Mike, I'm going to go next if that's okay for you.
Yeah, go for it, man.
I was lucky enough to see Billy Idol live in 2019. Ironically enough, it was a co-headlining event with Bryan Adams, believe it or not. One of those days there. That's a weird combination right there if I've ever heard of him. Bryan Adams and Billy Idol co-headlining back-to-back on the same stage. Who would have thought? That's one of those rare opportunities you get to see two artists in one night. It was pretty cool. But needless to say, though, that's my first exposure to Idol. He opened up with Dancing with Myself. He played a couple of other songs in there too. He's a very fun performer, needless to say. But I actually, to Kyle's credit and point, though, I did not realize that this was his first Idol. After digging around in it, he's not wrong. This is Billy Idol's first album, and literally since 2014, at least 11 years ago now. It's hard to believe, but it's true. I've always been a fan of his. Obviously his 80s stuff is very timeless. It's very, very played on the radio to any extent. Like either it's adult contemporary, they'll play Money, or rock radio will play like Rebel Yell. I'll say Rebel. That's David Bowie. Rebel Yell, or even they'll play like Dancing with Myself, some of his Generation X stuff. He's always been prominent in radio, but I didn't realize how his performance, how like how material he's put out. This is his 9th studio album in his career, which again, Kyle just said Bryan Adams puts out an album every like 2 or 3 years. Billy Idol has not put out an album since 2014, guys. That's kind of crazy to believe. But yeah, I don't know if I told you about this. My friend got 3 tickets for Billy Idol and Joan Jett on their It's a Great Day. It's a nice day to tour again tour later this year in August. So at the SPAC Saratoga date. I'm not disclosing where we are, but that should be where we are. I'll give you some hints, if you will. Sorry, disclose where we are. Code red. The red legs are on me. I'm just kidding. Oh, no. But no, needless to say, this is a really unique album, needless to say. I mean, we're going to get into the track list and all of our initial thoughts and stuff like that in a second, but that's just where I'm at with Billy Idol. Mike, you've enjoyed some of his stuff, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting how you can either really appreciate the symbol and the attitude of the man, what he stands for, the kind of like the look, the kind of energy he brings, or you can kind of know a body of music. And more so for me, I like the attitude, the look, the like the live performance, he was kind of like the cool looking punk rock kind of guy, but just more like, I guess, marketable to the mainstream. I knew, obviously, Rebel Yell. I mean, Rebel Yell and White Wedding are some of my favorite playlist songs to play. Yeah, great songs. Moni Moni, like they're all party songs. You can mix into any crowd and they will get a across the generational kind of response. But like outside of that, I feel like if we're talking about a legacy here of music that people know, I think his image may be more known than his actual output of work. But he still had like a lot of solid music and like older punk rock stuff, and kind of known for that as a performer and being in the music industry. But I mean, we're not going to fill a 15 20 song greatest hits collection with songs by Billy Idol. Maybe adjacently involved with, but not necessarily hits that you can rattle off. So, but I do appreciate that, though. He has an image, he has a certain kind of air to him, and he kind of brings that with his involvement in whatever musical project he's part of. You know, so yeah, it is kind of interesting how I've never really delved into any of the other music. I've just kind of known those songs and just kind of grew up with them and knew his image. That's about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you forgot to mention one of his best Generation X songs, "Dancing with
Okay,
Myself."
yeah, right.
It's like a giant wedding staple song. Maybe not a wedding staple, but it's along the lines of that. Like, to your point, though, I to agree with you 100%. Like, there's probably like 3 or 4 of his songs that you could just throw into any playlist and people will go nuts to it. Like,
Right.
he's just known for that. Exactly. So let's jump into it, shall we? So that's a little bit of our background with Idol. Let's jump into our the track listing. Mike, do you want to go first for a second? That's okay, because the K-Man is busy at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, he's here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Usual camera problems.
Oh, sorry, Kyle. Anyways, Kyle, why don't you take it away then? Sorry about that.
Sure. I'll start, highlights of this record. This is an interesting one where usually, as time goes by, the album either grows on you after the initial listens, or you end up thinking that it's not as good as you thought it was initially. This is an interesting one where, depending on the song, I had that experience. Some songs really grew on me, and other songs I was like, oh, I really don't like this now. One song that didn't happen with, though, and I gotta be honest, going into it, the title track, the first song here, Dream Into It, it's just a little too long. It's kind of just a boring opening track. Like, maybe a better placement in the album could have, softened it a little bit, but it just feels longer than it needs to be. This is kind of like the sound that I thought we were going to get on the album for the most part. This kind of like 80s synth pop almost, with like some more, slightly more modern production on it, but it doesn't really go anywhere. The chorus has potential, it has some like nice reflective lyrics on it, which is kind of the whole point of this record. This record is a concept album of like, his life essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So I get the setup on that, but it feels longer than it is, and it probably didn't have to be this long. But then the album really picks up for me for the second and third song, 77 with Avril Lavigne. That's what I'm going to talk about. Apparently there's a version without her.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't heard it. Kind of don't want to hear that one, to be honest. I think she actually really carried the song, and that's not to say that he was bad on it, but out of all of it, my least favorite part of the song, the only part that I thought brought it down at all, was the second verse, which is his solo verse on it. I just didn't think it really fit in with the rest of the song.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this is not the style I expected from this album at all, especially coming off that first track. I mean, this is just a modern pop punk song, like along the lines of the early 2020s pop punk revival that was going on, where like MGK's Tickets to My Downfall was huge. Blink-182 was coming back with Tom. Avril Lavigne made her pop punk comeback. So all that going on has this sound all over it. This might as well just be an Avril Lavigne song featuring Billy Idol, though, if we're going to be totally honest.
Yeah, I
But
agree with you on that. I agree. It felt like Avril Lavigne featuring Billy Idol. It almost sounded like Billy Idol, like someone's like, "Hey Billy, Avril's coming into the studio. Do you want to like write a song in the vein of her?" And he, yeah, oh sure, mate, right? Sorry about the British accent, but I don't have much. But anyway, yeah, I'm still working on it. But I
Alright.
like, right. So he was just like, "Yeah, come on in. We'll write a song in vein of her and like kind of
mhm,
showcase a style and that kind of is a bad thing to do because it doesn't really show confidence in like the album as a full piece of work, but more like individual songs showcased together that all kind of have different styles,
mhm.
with each one. And I totally agree with you. Dream Into It was a 3 out of 10 for me, and it had old man voice, and like he does this old man voice in this album on a couple different tracks,
Yes.
which I feels like we decided to not do any kind of effects.
Yep.
We decided to not do any kind of like coverage of his voice or do anything. We're just gonna let him do like weird vibrato that like older people do when they sing
Yep.
and just like let it fly. But then you'll have Still Dancing have a complete throwback, different vocal style on it that's lower and much more subdued and like kind of screened. I feel like a little more than maybe it should be, but it also helps soften the the aged voice of Billy Idol.
Well, I was going to get into that a little.
Yeah.
I'll get into that a little more. I talk about like when we get into like the low points of the record for me,
Right.
but you're 100% right with that.
Agreed.
And I would say that his verse on 77 almost suffers from not as much as some others, but his verse on there, that's what kind of detracts from it. Where it's all right, Avril Lavigne's, I could say youthful. I mean, energetic is the more appropriate term, at this point in their careers. And on 77, the lyrics, I'm gonna say it's a 9 out of 10 for me. This one, I actually really like the song. I think it's a really solid pop punk song.
Yeah.
The lyrics, outside of this album, if this was just a standalone single, outside of this whole concept of writing about my life and my experiences type thing, the lyrics are kind of cringy on this one for someone of both of their ages, specifically his as a 69-year-old man. The line about, oh, two vampires walking at night and everyone's scared of us or whatever he's saying in there. Weird.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
song kicks ass. The chorus is great. And then we get into Too Much Fun, where if this was the output of his vocals on here, why didn't he do this on 77?
Mhm.
Because this feels like a total peek into Blink-182's future.
Oh dear God.
This sounds like a Blink-182 song in about 20 years from now.
Oh no.
It's really catchy and fun. I love this. This is my favorite song of the album. I thought this is a 10 out of 10. I love the one thing that I really love about artists from the 80s and what takes me away from a lot of their later works is I love the 80s rock star lifestyle, like songs about that. I love that whole attitude. And that's gotten, lost along the years.
Mhm.
And this just really brings you back to that. It really shows like a snapshot. And it's great. It's a fun song. And I love it for that. Those are really my only two standout tracks from this. I would throw Still Dancing in there as my third, I guess, honorable mention here. But that's saying a lot. I only have Still Dancing at a 6 out of 10. It's my first comment on it is this just White Wedding? Which I'm sure it was intentional. I mean, the song itself is a callback to Dancing with Myself. It's like, oh, I'm still doing it, still dancing. This is another kind of like Dream Into It. This is another kind of thing that I expected to hear from the album. It's not bad, just nothing great. But I mean, 77 and Too Much Fun, I would have loved to hear more along the lines of that. I thought he actually did very well on that. But then the rest of the album had totally different sounds. So I mean, those are my top two. I'm sure, Mike, you have very different views.
I did not like that song, and I mean it fits with the bill of you and I being always kind of like polar opposites in a lot of things. Dream Into It, I mean, well, Dream Into It, we can agree I was falling asleep. It was weird. It just really just doesn't do much for very long. It leans away from like the rock side. It kind of goes to the atmospheric side. It feels like very disjointed. Just doesn't ever do anything consistently well. If anything, it's just in a way I feel like his attempt at doing a kind of dreamlike song, but in a bad way that just doesn't work. One thing across I must mention across this whole album is that the production is atrocious, absolutely
Yeah.
atrocious, and it really the drums are lifeless. The guitars are only kicking into gear when I feel like they need to, like 77 and somewhat in Still Dancing. The question's still on out on that. If those guitars
Right.
they're really processed, but like
Well, Mike,
they're
there's one notable difference here, or no, one notable inclusion you're missing there,
mm,
and that's the totally random, out of place guitar solos in Wild Side.
oh
Yes.
God. Definitely. They were definitely trying to capture some kind of wild like musical rock proof like, hey, here it is. Here's the wild side. Here comes a wild guitar solo, but it's like it
But
feels just
bang.
yeah, but it feels like missing like my other low point of this album, the 5 out of 10 was too much fun. It's just simple. It has a little bit, little catchiness, it's simple, upbeat quality to it. But aside from that, it really production wise and lyrically just cringe and overall it just doesn't really bring much in depth. It just kind of chronicles the stories of Billy Idol, like reflecting, but it feels like it's too much, too little, too late, So
Really.
those are my two bottom songs: are "Dream Into It," "Too Much Fun," and I'll just kind of throw it over to JT to kind of like where he's like feeling
Yeah. I
lackluster.
mean, it's the damnedest weirdest thing when stuff like this, when albums like this hit, because like, oh, it's a new Billy Idol album. All right, I'll give it a shot, whatever. One thing I did appreciate, I'll get to my lows, then I'll get to my highs. I'll end on the positives. That's okay with both of you. So when I first turned on the album on Spotify, which you should stream it from start to finish. I've always said that. Dream Into It. Agreed to both of your points. A very very long intro. I actually was when the song first started, I was like, oh God, we're gonna give it a 2 out of 10. I guarantee it. And this the title track. I could hear you both are gonna laugh at me. I heard Kyle say, if this is JT's favorite track on the album, in my head, it's actually not, my friend. The title track is not my favorite song on the record because it's a little bit too new wave-ish, too like dreamy, literally dreamy, like literally in the title, Dreamy Into It. It's too like a little too psychedelic. I want to say, I don't want to say psychedelic. It's just too long. Not my favorite track. But then actually, it's funny. The next words out of my mouth where the moment 77 started was, why didn't the album start with this? It's like, I know.
Yeah,
Why
I
did we?
agree.
And to both of your points, so Avril Lavigne kicks ass on this track. She really
Mm.
does. And it is like, I've seen Avril Lavigne live. I'm sure Kyle has at some point, but this is, I could see her like featuring this song on her current tour across North America right now. Like she would kill playing this live without Idol in it. It's just, it really could be her own song, but unfortunately it's Billy Idol's song. Too much fun. Listen, it is a lot of fun. And to Kyle, you hit it on the head. I think this might be what Blink-182 will do in the next 20 years. Mark, I could see Mark Hoppus and Travis Barker be like, man, remember the Billy Idol song? Let's cover it and see what happens. Let's do something like that. They easily could. It's just but it's true though. It is a lot of fun. It's a very solid track. It's not does it overstay its welcome? Not really, no, but I do like it. It is a really lot of fun. The rest of the album, though, like the features on it are strong, of Allison Mosshart and Joan Jett. I actually like their features on it. Truthfully, even Avril Lavigne's feature was really solid. The biggest problem I have too. Sorry, let me just finish what I was saying too. But Joan Jett, it's funny because I think they're touring with Joan Jett, knowing that this song Wild Side was going to be featured on the album too. So that's kind of a plus, I guess, for the tour that's going on right now too, between Billy Idol and Joan Jett together. But I just wanted I don't know if you guys maybe Kyle maybe touch on this more, but about his lyricism in this. But People I Love, I mean, it's not like a 10 out of 10. It's not a solid. It's a good track. It's not a bad track. But his lyrical writing about his life really did shine pretty well on here. I mean, I don't know, like People I Love, especially just for whatever reason, that the lyrics on that. I remember the words I said out loud in the car listening to it. I was like, man, he really got personal. He went from like Money to the people I love are great people. You know, it's like it was so heartfelt, and it was a different style of Billy Idol that we don't normally get. And I like that a lot. And I like that. That's why when I first heard that, I was like, you know, he's really reflecting back on a lot of his life. I mean, and all of these tracks do, but especially that one, including I'm Your Hero. But it was like more People I Love than I'm Your Hero. But that's me personally. And Still Dancing, it ends on a banger of just like White Wedding without being White Wedding. So that's just, it was really a solid closer. It's not a great track, but it's a solid closer. I don't know, Mike, do you think that the lyrics were too personal? Would you say, or were they too? How would you say his lyrics? Because I feel like when people think of Billy Idol, think, oh yeah, Rebel Yell, right, or Dancing with Myself. This one, but People I Love, it's like, huh, he really had some different dynamics and lyrics there. No,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was actually just going to mention the lyrics to John Wayne. They're just kind of
oh right, yeah.
strange. I didn't really understand what was being said about that, and also if he's saying what I think he's saying. But I'll just read some of the lyrics. He says, "Because when I need you, I can see through, and I feel you right now on the highway, doing my way, and I want you to feel when I'm going down."
Oh dear God.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and I don't want to go down in flames. Is that because you're gonna crash the car? I mean, I didn't, and then the tie-in with I'm John Wayne tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm chasing the golden day. I'm just what I need, like some kind of, I need an adult. No, I need someone to tell me what this song is going on about, and it's just a little some strange stuff, you know. The people I love, pissing off the people I love. They obviously just put people I love. Now they're reminiscing about the broken relationship, reminiscing about the too much fun, reminiscing about this, that, and the other thing about the wild side and the like being Billy Idol. And that's why I kind of mentioned at the top of the podcast that the man sells an image, the man sells a life, the man sells
Yes.
a brand and a vision of like what it was like to be the guy that for a time being was on top of the world, and like sex icon, like punk rock, new wave, where all that those musical sounds joined together. He was able to kind of forge out a sound of within that kind of environment, and it kind of like shows you what it's like, but in a lot of ways it feels very intentionally kind of like just doing the victory lap, whereas like a lot of ways I felt like if he had better production on this album, and it felt like an album that wanted to like establish a modern kind of future for
Mhm.
like what Billy Idol would be going for, rather than a kind of muted replication of the past's kind of less forward sounding production. Like Kyle said, was like the throwback. It has a throwback feel, but with a lot of random moments that feel like they're trying to try out different styles or whatever, like that he's trying to hit. But and my two favorite songs off this album are Still Dancing, as gimmicky as it is, as like a replica of like, if White Wedding and Rebel Yell had a child, it would be Still Dancing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel it's the only song on the entire album, lyrically, like vocally sounding interesting, a way the guitars kind of come along with the song, although I feel like the guitars are much more forward on 77. That, and also I think I'm Your Hero was a cool song, although it's a little weird vocally, deep, all too deep for no reason at all, but just to kind of maybe create a dark environment to that song. But those two songs were my favorite. 77's kind of peeking out at the top, out of the bottom three. But there are no tens on this album. 9 for Still Dancing. I'm Your Hero would be a 7, and then 77 was like a 6.5. But like, he's got some fun moments and a lot of weird moments, and a little bit of inconsistency in a lot of these tracks. So.
Yeah, it's funny talking about it. You both brought up actually each of my least favorite songs on here. I'll start with my very least favorite, and that's John Wayne. And this is where I think the album starts to fall apart. This is where it became clear to me that this was a very unfocused album, in the sense that he went for, in only 9 songs, attempted too many sounds. We had Dream Into It, which is like that 80s pop, synth pop, what you would expect type of song. Then you had the 2 pop punk songs. Now you get into John Wayne, it's like, all right, here's kind of a almost like pop country song with questionable lyrics. And here's also where I felt like the whole concept album of it lost its footing as well. And that's, I think, also hurt the record, in that I see from Dream Into It to 77 to Too Much Fun, I'm like, okay, I see where this is going. I see the concept. It's, Dream Into It, it's like, all right, I'm looking back on my life, all that. 77 is Too Much Fun. It's like his early days, being that party guy and all that. And then from here, it just feels like the themes of the next songs don't do anything different, with the exception maybe People I Love, which is also one of my least favorites. It just sounds like every song is doing the same thing almost. People I Love is a little bit more like self-reflective than the others. And then I'm Your Hero, also one of my least favorites. This is one of those ones where he does what I referred to as the old man Johnny Cash voice, where he was like, well, what Johnny Cash do in the last few years of his career? I'm going to do that voice. And it just doesn't work as well here. But then Still Dancing, it picks back up that kind of storyline where I'm like, okay, you ended it strong. But I personally, I don't know about you guys, I personally lost that story and the plot from most of the album. It just felt, the biggest issue with this for me is that it just felt unfocused, trying to tap into too many styles, too many genres, old, new things out of his wheelhouse. And I'm like, and I appreciate that. I have total respect for Billy Idol. I respect what he did for like the image of the genre. Let's be honest, most of the pop punk bands that like I grew up with, like the 90s, early 2000s, wouldn't have had their images, or they were influenced, whether directly or indirectly, by things that Billy Idol had did throughout his career.
Correct.
So I had total respect for the guy, and I respect this album. I just think that it had some misses on it, and this is one of those ones where having a short album can either be a good thing for the overall quality or a bad thing. Because if you have 4 songs that are pretty good, and then the rest of them are either filler or bad, you come away with a more sour experience than if you had a 15-song album and the mix was different. So I mean, overall, I ended up on this with a 5.5. It's not bad. It's not great. There's a couple songs I really like, some mediocre songs, and then 1 or 2 that I just didn't like. But overall, it's almost what I would expect from someone at this point in their career that I haven't really heard anything from in a decade. Not bad. Like Mike said, he sells more of an image, and that definitely comes through even with the attitude on the lyrics on a lot of these. Not bad. I'll definitely revisit 77 and Too Much Fun for sure.
And if I could take it from there, I'm just coming in with my rating. It's got the catchiness attached to a body that can't hold any other weight besides its delivery of said catchiness. It's like a decent house built on a sandy kind of shore, and it's slowly being worn away by the the water coming in. And it started out good, but as the tide rises and you realize like a lot of these songs do the same thing, or they're not built on much besides the delivery of said catchiness. It starts to get worn away as time goes by with each listen, and doesn't really have too much substance to it. I did actually like Give Me the Weight. If I'll just note the account, towards the end of the last three songs of this album are Redemption. The middle was the middle plus Too Much Fun were rough, and then obviously 77 was a little bit of a peek into what he could bring to the table that wasn't going to kind of suffer from some of those previous middle songs problems. But ultimately, I'm a little higher than Kyle. I'm a 6.5 out of 10. I might even drop down to a 6 depending on with each listen. Obviously, everyone knows online, and to everyone doing the review, this is a knee-jerk reaction. It does take time to warm up to albums, to review albums, to understand them, and like how you feel now may not be how you feel tomorrow. So Still Dancing was my favorite, and regardless as intentionally mirroring previous material, I do feel I appreciate that it literally could channel the exact same energy with a different melody, obviously with an undertone of a similar sound, but a new song written in the name of like his original energy that he brought, which I appreciate. That I just wish there was more of that on there so I could feel that energy kind of continuing in a consistent way. But yeah, 6.5 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, for me, it's not like it's weird. It's not the good is really good. Obviously, 77. Obviously, songs like Still Dancing, and there's obviously some really, really good stuff on this record. There's like 4 really solid tracks, truthfully. But at the same time, it's not as strong once you get past like tracks like John Wayne, like just tracks like there's not too much on there else to manifest on. That's a good word. Thank you, Mike. There's not too much to manifest on other than just the first 4 tracks and the closing, which I'm actually I'm not surprised. He put out an album like this 11 years after his most recent release. But I mean, I feel like this would have been this is my last 2 cents, if you will, before I get my rating. First thing is, I feel like this might have been better off as an EP, truthfully. Here's like, or I'm glad he put out an album, but like at the same time, I feel like the stronger tracks might have been suited better as like almost like what Weezer did with their Seasons project. Like it's just a smaller album, maybe like 5 or 6 tracks. It's only 30 minutes long too, which is a nice runtime. If you like shorter albums that have like really good strong songs and a couple of like not dingers, but like just like a couple like lesser good tracks on there, this might be a good album to get into for you personally. But to Mike's point though, at Still Dancing, while we're recording this, I just had to look up his average set list for the tour that's on right now. He's opening up with Still Dancing. So that's a good sign right there too, that he wants to probably promote the new material, and then after that it's Cradle of Love, and then Flesh for Fantasy, then 77. So he's like new song, old, new, and then it goes from there. So interesting stuff. Obviously, please stay tuned for us here at the Super Review Show for on our social media pages for when I go see Billy Idol and Joan Jett later this summer at Spec. But yeah, but my rating overall, like, listen, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of really good up, but there is some good down. So to quote our other podcast, Mike and I are swiping right at a 6.5. I was gonna go up to a 7. I was gonna go up to a 7, Mike, believe it or not. But I said a 7 is too generous for an album like this. I feel like the name Billy Idol is selling this album more than just the songs on it. So like, it's Billy Idol's got a new album, that great. Okay, Billy Idol's got a new album. It's kind of got that reaction to it since April, but still listen to it. Nonetheless, it's just our reaction or review to it. But still, I think this is a solid 6.5. So unfortunately, Kyle is the villain in this case.
Kyle does that a lot. He hates fun, too much fun.
It's been the last few. I've been the villain for him. Used to it. It's fine.
He's having too much fun. He might have to start again at some point. No, but needless to say, though, that's gonna do it for us, guys. Thanks for anything else, guys. We're good to go, right? And we have our next album picked out for next week, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, cool. We want to thank you for watching, listening. However you enjoy it, Kyle. Q&A podcast is not back, correct?
Nope.
Okay.
Correct.
Any news on when it will maybe back or no?
No clue.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can start again.
Indefinite hiatus for now.
It's indefinite hiatus because of his son being born. And little Joey, we love him. So, anyways, I digress. That's gonna do it for us, guys. Thanks so much for watching us into our podcast as always. Please, if you like what you've seen or heard here, subscribe to us on YouTube. We do the show on YouTube Monday nights. Tonight was Tuesday night. Don't worry. Monday nights, EST. But yesterday was Memorial Day, so I gave the guys a day off. It's okay. But yeah,
holiday pay. Woo!
Holiday pay, baby. You got that federal holiday pay for me. Don't worry. We do the show for free, damn it. So no worries. But yeah. But for all of us here at the Super Review Show, don't forget to follow us on the social media pages as well. Simply at the Super Review Show on Facebook and Instagram. Simply at the Super Review Show. But yeah, for all of us here at the Super Review Show, please stay safe, take care, and God bless.
Yeah. Woo!
Woo!